Good evening and welcome to Wrestling Roundtable Radio. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria. The number to call is 347-857-4647. Been working in wrestling a little over 6 years now, and right here at the top of the hour, right after NXT. This is not our job, people. This is something we do as a hobby. This is something we do on the side. This is something we do for fun. It takes a lot of time and work on my part as the host and captain of the ship, so to speak, and it's a lot of work for me between the website and the video and the radio show. But it's something we do for you, the audience, and I've always said that you are the show. You are part of the show. The thing that I thought was unique about this concept and this show was that you would be an integral part of it. Whenever we would do a YouTube video, I wanted your comments. I wanted your active participation, whether you were leaving us messages on Facebook, MySpace, iTunes, Twitter, wherever it might be. If you're signing up for our message board, if you're signing up for our newsletter, we wanted to hear your thoughts, and that's why we want your calls here on this show, too. You are part of the show, and you can sign up for our newsletter and message board on WrestlingRoundtable.com, where we also hope to get your support if you shop at our store to get the Pro Wrestling Respect DVDs or Wrestling Roundtable T-shirts. Hey, we're all working, and I'd love to make this my actual full-time job instead of the thing I do on the side, and the way I can do that is if you keep supporting the show, click the ads, buy the shirts, if you need to get anything off of Amazon.com, especially with this holiday season coming up, please do it through our Amazon store. And on the way back home from work today, man, I get stuck on the New Jersey Turnpike with this blown-up radiator or some gasket blew. There was a big pop, smoke pouring out of my car. I needed to get towed off the turnpike because AAA doesn't cover the turnpike. What a fucking inconvenience and annoyance that is. Then I needed to get towed from where I was by AAA to someplace closer, and scrambling to get here, people, and I did it for you. So one last thing before we get on to the regular show as planned. Wanted to point out that it's Miley Cyrus's 18th birthday. She is 18 as of today, so it's not all bad news today. You can keep on your masturbation without a guilty conscience now. Or, if you're me, you can just keep on doing what you've been doing and feel fine. So, want to bring on Will Vafides. Hello, Will.
Hey, what's going on, Eric? It's glad to be back on the show. Glad to be talking again. I've been keeping quiet. All I can do is text on Facebook. But it's good to be back, and it has been an awesome month of wrestling, and can't wait to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, we will be talking primarily about wrestling tonight. Originally, I was planning on doing some mixed martial arts, but I think wrestling's taken a precedent this week, and we're going to be talking all wrestling, and I think we'll save our mixed martial arts talk for our next show. Will Brooks. Hello, Will.
How's it going, Eric? How you well?
TNA's pay-per-view this month, right at the beginning, was Turning Point 2010. How'd you feel about this show overall?
It's like how we compare WrestleMania and then we compare the pay-per-view after called Backlash, where a lot of people say nothing really happens too much, and it's kind of the same scenario. It was all just a build-up basically for the They group, the Immortals, to, have all the wins. And there was absolutely no reason to really order the pay-per-view. There was no reason, for me to get emotionally invested, maybe other than the tag team with Team 3D and the Machine Guns, which, by the way, was a really good match. That was the first time they've been saying that anyone kicked out of the 3D. I don't remember I looked back. I don't remember any time that ever happened. Can you think of any, Eric, that you can think of that kicked out of that move?
Well, if we want to talk about that match in particular at the moment, I suppose I've got lots of thoughts about it, and one of them is that it may, in fact, have been the first time, and it may not have. If it isn't the first time that people have kicked out of the 3D, then it's been so infrequent that you don't remember it, and to their benefit, because I think that entire match, and that spot in particular, gave Motor City Machine Guns such an incredible rub. That segment was maybe one of the best that they've produced this year, because Motor City Machine Guns, as you've attested to many times on this show, Will, have been on a really hot fucking tear. And I've said on the show before that I prefer Sabin and Shelley as singles. I'm not too into the Motor City Machine Guns act per se, but I know people are. And being that they're running with it, whether it's Beer Money, whether it's Team 3D, whether it's Generation Me, these guys are getting great matches out of everybody, and they are on an incredible hot streak. So that being said, even if it isn't the first time that someone's kicked out of the 3D, it meant something this time for sure. So between being really put over with that move and put over in the segment in general, because they really, even if it was for that night, much like this whole Cena quitting thing is probably going to last like a week, but whatever. Brother Ray turned on Devon at the following show. Forget all that. For that night, Brother Ray and Devon really passed the torch to Motor City Machine Guns, made them look like $1 million, and I thought that whole segment came off really great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was definitely the right thing to do. I was kind of afraid that they wouldn't do it. I was glad they won. They got the rub. They're going to be the tag team, for that company for a long time, and they're the team to beat. And that was probably the only significant thing I can remember from that night. Otherwise, it was all Immortals winning every match. The main event kind of got screwed up where Hardy hit the back of Anderson's head with the chair. I mean,
right.
If you folks haven't seen that shot, go find it because it's pretty nasty.
Anderson was originally supposed to be in the main event, and Morgan was inserted in there, and somewhat of a mixed reaction, I suppose, to Hardy, who they're really insisting on trying to get heel heat in any way possible, as we've seen with that stunt afterwards on the impact following, or 2 impacts following, where they set up autographs and then Hardy came out, cut a heel promo on everyone and left, and they had to refund the money, which sounds very Russo-esque in its essence, where they're trying to turn Hardy heel hardcore to like 25 people off the air. It seems like really ridiculous lengths they're going to put heel heat on Hardy, because they're obviously still getting a lot of positive fan reaction to Hardy, one of the most over wrestlers in the past decade, and they're just trying to cram that down our throats. But how do you think Matt Morgan came through in this main event slot?
He did the best that he could. He kind of got thrown in there. I like the angle that they ran into it real quickly about the headshots and how they're playing like a real storyline, kind of pro athletes. How
Morgan is standing up for the people being concussed. We shouldn't be doing that. Blah blah blah. Yeah,
but what hurt him the most is that he lost cleanly. There was no screw job. There was nothing that made Morgan look good at all. It just.
Are you kidding? I could totally believe that Jeff Hardy could beat Matt Morgan on his own.
Exactly. I mean, that's my point, is that there should have been some kind of screw job in the end to have Hardy win that match. And now that Morgan got beat cleanly, that doesn't work for me. I don't think that's believable, and it just doesn't work.
Especially with Jeff Hardy being the Antichrist of wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, I don't get it, and that's what, and it was a downer at the end. I really expected something bigger to happen, but then again, like I said, this was a throwaway pay-per-view. There was absolutely no reason to buy it after Anderson got knocked out. They had nothing going for it. They had one storyline that really probably meant something. The whole EV2 Fortune stuff that's been going on is so played out now. It's like ridiculous. It was just not worthy of buying, and it hurts. That's going to hurt TNA. I'm really scared for them. It's starting to really scare me that even though Machine Guns are the best tag team that we probably have in tag wrestling, they might not be around that much longer if that company don't start changing shit around.
Well, they've been making lots of budget cuts, and it seems as if TNA's strategy is to cut all the mid-carders' money down and then either let their contracts run out and then try and bring them back for lesser pay, like Eric Young and others before him. But TNA's just run so ridiculous. I've heard a lot of horror stories from indie promoters trying to book their wrestlers on shows, and the way they do it is just completely ass backwards.
Actually, when I was doing pro wrestling, we tried to book Hernandez and Jay Lethal one time, and those guys were so hard to book, and on top of it, they didn't even show up. So they're not very dependent. Especially when I talked to Hernandez on the phone, he was on his way. So, like I said, not very dependent guy.
On his way to what, the bar?
No, he's not. Well, my guess was there was an ROH show, and he was actually going there to kind of hang out rather than come to our show. That's what I heard.
Well, speaking of Jay Lethal, a New Jerseyan like ourselves, it seems the first quarter, or third, I should say, of the pay-per-view everyone seemed to like, and then the rest of it people didn't really care about. What did you make of the opener where Robbie E. won the X title from Jay Lethal?
I think that's the right move. Honestly, even though I love Jay Lethal, but they haven't done anything with him, there's nothing going for him right now. That belt means nothing on him. Robbie E. is a new guy. You got to get the guy over. They did that. They did that already with bringing in Jay Wow in, which was a way to get the character over. And I was going to say, if he didn't win this match and that whole build-up and all the money that they spent on Jay Wow going in there and being in that TNA arena would have been completely a waste of time if he would have lost. So I think having him with the X Division title is the right move. It may be a stupid character, but I'm guessing it's working. People seem to like it. So,
well, the character just reeks of Russo trying to do, and again, I don't mean to be the person that always puts TNA's writing on Russo. It's not just him, but you can see his fingerprints in certain areas, and this just seems like it to me, much like Mike Awesome becoming the 70s guy 10 years ago. What's the popular show? That 70s show. What's the popular show now? Jersey Shore, and he's this infatuation, the situation, whatever. And I'd heard of Rob Eckos a lot in the Northeast. I don't believe, ever seen him, so this was my first look at him. He was serviceable, not bad. I had a minor issue with selling on one move, but that's nitpicking. And aside from that, it was a pretty fine match. And moving on to the second match was Tara and Mickie James, my wet dream come true.
Yes.
What'd you think of this brawl that people were saying was the best women's match of the year?
Agreed. That was pretty intense. You have to believe in what's really happening, and they made it believe. But you're talking about two people who have been wrestling for years. They're not knockouts. They're not brand new knockouts. They've been wrestling for years in Indies and WWE. These women know what to do. They've always known what to do. And it's just a matter of, getting them over. When they first got in WWE, they were over like crazy. Tara worked very well with Trish, and so did Mickie James. And they're going to be able to do it again now. I don't like her cowboy gimmick. I really don't like that. But other than that, I think that, those two are doing a very good job as far as getting people really believing in their hatred for each other. So the only problem I have with that is that none of them are the champions, so where are the belts? That's the problem. Well, it almost seems like the Knockouts belt is being pushed aside and letting these two go at it. If anything, if they had a belt, it would mean even more. But, the belt, I haven't even seen the belt defended in I don't know how long.
Well, on the other hand, maybe they don't need it. Maybe they're hot enough on their own that they don't need the
They do, but that hurts the title, I think, in a way, is that women who are having the best matches and who are fighting each other are not even fighting over anything. They have no belt. They have nothing to fight over. So that's what the problem is. I think that's an added bonus, and it hurts it hurts the champion by not putting her on the pay-per-view. Well, he's on the pay-per-view.
Well, for this bout in particular, I thought the energy level, especially towards the end after the match had officially ended and they were doing the pull-apart brawl, was off the charts. Great, realistic energy. And, of course, they had a fine match beforehand, but it was just very well done, and I'm very happy to see these two, who were two of my favorites, and, like you pointed out, two former Trish stalkers going at it. Any other thoughts on the pay-per-view, like the EV2 or Dreamer RVD match?
Well, that RVD match and Dreamer went way too long. I wasn't really happy with that. I know a lot of people didn't like that. As far as the Fortune EV2, that was pretty obvious. D'Angelo De Niro's, congregation. Why wasn't De Niro the actual main eventer? Because I didn't understand why Morgan was. He was already over, and they put him with Abyss, and I didn't understand that. The match was good. It was all right. It wasn't something that stood out. But like I said, there were a lot of mistakes made, and the whole Jeff Jarrett now MMA thing is actually kind of funny. I actually don't mind seeing that. Nothing stood out. That's really my problem, except for the tag match.
I will just Turning Point out, that I will never get used to Sabu with a shaved head. I don't like it.
It does not work at all.
Let's go to a call. Abe in Augusta, Georgia. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Eric Santamaria. Not Santino.
Not quite.
No.
Not yet. I've seen Impact before pay-per-views, and I'm talking about 2 3 weeks leading into them. The problem is if you watch the whole thing, you cannot buy anything seriously as far as it's going to make you buy it because there's no big moments. There's no long lead matches.
Well, it seems as if TNA is more interested in building a TV audience than a pay-per-view one. They've made it known a long time ago that if they could get out of doing 12 pay-per-views a year, they would have. They're contractually obligated, at least for a little while. And once that is up, they're going to cut the number of pay-per-views they're doing because they've gone sharply into the tanker. And they just seem to want to build that TV audience. And they've done a good job in recovering the audience they've lost earlier in the year when they went to Monday nights. They had a big drop in audience. They seem to have gotten most of them back, and they are a loyal audience. They will watch on Thursdays no matter what. So the problem is that they need to turn those people into forking over the money on pay-per-view, but they don't. It's maybe because they give all this stuff away for free on TV.
But this is my problem with that. If you watch it like a pay-per-view and Impact, you can't tell a heavy difference.
Mm-hmm. Well,
like,
it's all shot in the same place, too.
Yeah, I know that. And I'm like, the audience about the same reaction-wise. And, like, I like the pay-per-views and the Impact. The pay-per-view audience seemed less enthusiastic than the TV audience.
Yeah, I got that vibe, too, when I watched it. I felt the same way. They just didn't seem interested. Because I was even watching that tag match, and that's the one message that stood out for me because not many people were really into it. It just felt like that nobody there was really into it. Almost makes me feel like they got it for free or something. When you go to a show, I'm really excited to be at a show. You know, I really enjoy being there. But when a crowd's all negative like that or they're not really responding, it really hurts the product, overall product. What if you see the audience not enjoying it, what's going to make you want to buy a ticket to go there? So, or in this case, it's free, but not for pay-per-view, but you know what I'm saying. You know, what would make you go buy a ticket to watch a live show?
I think the audience was into the tag match, but let's keep in mind that they also don't pay to get in there. They just pay to get into the theme park. Ryan from Massachusetts, you're on.
I have very little good to say about TNA at this moment.
Does that ever change, though?
No. I mean, you always hear the same thing, that they're trying to copy WWE all the time with a lot of stuff that they do. The problem with that is, A, it's not as good as the stuff that WWE pulls off, so you're not bringing in WWE's audience, and B, because you're trying to be like WWE, you're driving away the TNA loyal. Even though about, 1.5 million still somehow, for reasons unbeknownst to me, stay loyal. I'm like one of the biggest AJ Styles fans, but even he can't get me to tune in every week. If I hear he has a good match, I'll catch it on YouTube. That's it. I can't watch that stuff anymore. I really can't.
We all come to the breaking point, and I don't mean pay-per-view. Let's move on from TNA, though, and let's get to everything WWE. And want to bring on, for our WWE talk, Brett Midge Simonello. Hello, Midge.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing okay. And to backtrack a little bit, because we haven't done a show since it happened, wanted to at least briefly mention Linda McMahon's failed Senate campaign in Connecticut, because I think people are under the impression that this has a lot to do with the PG initiative that WWE's taken on in the past couple of years, and in all likelihood, it has. That being said, they were still pretty much heading in that direction before she decided to run for Senate. My question to everyone here is if you think that direction is going to continue now that she hasn't been elected. After all, in the past couple of weeks on Raw, we've heard the words slut, maybe by accident, and bitches bleeped. Ooh, edgy. Do you think that this might be a hint of things to come, Will Brooks, or is it just going to stay the course? Kids are too important.
Actually, I think it's going to be kind of like what it is right now. They're going to try to stay PG, but every now and then throw you like a bone or two, just to make things interesting. Like, you can't have blood in every match, but I'm sure if it's a major match and it makes sense, we're going to see blood again. They're not going to stop the match and like get a towel
That was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think they're going to be more like, say, PG-13 now. Let little things slide, but not majorly, though.
Well, I would hope, because as much as I seemingly goof on it whenever it does come up, I think PG is the way to go. And I know a lot of people seem to be of the opinion that, no, we want the Attitude Era back. That's when it was the best. Blah, 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 blah. I know that most of us on the panel have been watching for decades. And when we were growing up, things were PG primarily, not to the ridiculous extent that they would stop a match so they can cover up someone's nosebleed, but still enough. And I do think that having wrestling be something that you can take the entire family to is good. What do you think, Brett?
I like the PG stand we got going right now. The difference between now and the Attitude Era is right now we have PG wrestlers. Back then we had PG-13 rated R wrestlers. You had Austin, you had The Rock, you had E-Generation X. They were doing adult things. Right now, I don't see anybody that could naturally fill that 18-year-old to 26-year-old void for that audience that wants the hardcore wrestling back. There's just not that type of wrestler around right now.
I don't know. I think all of them could. Orton can be the dick that he really is. Cena was rhyming about dicks just a few years ago, and Miz, I'm sure, is a lot more than what we've seen. I think they could pull out a lot.
Hopefully I'm wrong, and, they're given a little more freedom. That seems to be the problem. They're all handcuffed. If you watch any, interview with any wrestler, they always said, most of them that are the most successful are the ones that said, I had these few points, and I said what I needed to say. The ones that are held back, like the Shelton Benjamins or whatever, are the ones that are given scripts and they can't really pull off other people's ideas.
That might be part of it, but let's relate that back to something we'll cover later, which is the old school Raw. I will bring that back up. But one other thing I wanted to bring up as far as it relates to the Linda McMahon campaign was the whole Stand Up for WWE initiative that they started. Obviously, it wasn't even like they were trying to hide it. Connected directly to the Linda McMahon campaign. Granted, they did do at least one video that I thought was actually pretty good, which was the multi-generational Stand Up for WWE video about all the second, third, fourth at this point, who knows how many generation wrestlers talking about their fathers in wrestling. That was pretty cool. And if you saw the NXT leak that had Kevin Dunn's director's feed in it, he said, "This is a great fucking video, man. It really put our fucking talent over." And you just wish that the writers would have more of that ability to put the talent over, not just the video editors, but that's another thing we'll get to. Point being that video was pretty good. However, when it started off, I thought this was really super fucking obnoxious, and I do have a lot of good things to say about WWE today, so don't think I'm being completely negative, but this is just too much for me. When Vince McMahon comes out and says, these people are attacking your values and what you're proud of, he doesn't even use the term wrestler. He uses the word superstars, and if you're a woman, you're even below that, you're a diva. He doesn't use the term wrestling. It's sports entertainment. We can't even use the word fans anymore. It's WWE Universe. This is a word control organization. And the part that bothered me the most was that this person is not even proud of who he is. It's notorious in history that Vince McMahon is a self-hating wrestling person in a way, almost as if he's embarrassed that he's a wrestling promoter and this is wrestling. We make movies, blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was just ridiculously hypocritical, and couple that with the ridiculous links that they took 24/7 to recently, which is one of the reasons why I canceled my subscription, where, as I mentioned, when we were growing up watching wrestling in the 80s, or WWF, and that was primarily PG, but yet now when I watch those same shows, I get a warning, this is intended for mature audiences. Are you fucking kidding me? Hulk Hogan and Typhoon?
Yeah.
Plus black and whiting the Attitude Era shit, too, when I paid for it. I ain't going for that. I understand blurring the Scratch Attitude logo for the World Wildlife Fund shit, but please, you're going to black and white Austin's great shot from WrestleMania 13 and the like? I didn't buy that. So what did you think of the whole Stand Up for WWE campaign, Will? Was it actually bringing the WWE fans together, or just major league whining from people who wanted to win a seat?
Well, I was kind of split on that. I understand why they're doing it, but I don't get why they're doing it. But the people who watch WWE, if it's a PG show, mostly are kids. They can't vote. So I don't get why they're doing it. On the other hand, they have been attacked by their chair shots, how they're classifying their employees. You know, this campaign did bring out a lot of bad stuff for WWE, and the idea is that they're telling you one thing, but this is how we are. You know, this is what we are. And I stand up for something that I fully love. I love pro wrestling or entertainment, whatever you want to call it. You know, how media slanders everything. WWE does it too, but I always stand up for something I believe in, and I believe in, you know, sports entertainment. I've valued 21 years in that product, and I love it. It's something I'm going to grow up with probably for the rest of my life. But that's why I stand up for it. Yes, they're doing it because they're getting attacked, but then again, you know, there was no need for it.
Well, sure there was. Linda McMahon spent $52 million to get elected, and they spent $5 million on buying WCW and couldn't be bothered to bring in all the other people because they were too cheap. It's amazing what they spend their money on. Football leagues, Linda McMahon trying to run for Senate, but yet they can't classify wrestlers as employees because then they can get away without paying the taxes on that, et cetera, et cetera. See, I take the opposite approach, and maybe it's because I've been involved in wrestling for so long, but I don't stand up for wrestling because wrestling's problems are all their own fault, and there's absolutely no reason that they should be happening. So wrestling should be able to take care of itself, and it usually doesn't. In fact, it usually does the exact opposite in a self-destructive way, and essentially that's why I call them out on it. So I don't particularly feel like standing up for that. I believe me, Will, I loved wrestling, and I was so fanatical that I became a part of it, so to speak, which is something everyone should keep in mind. If a wrestler ever calls you a mark or tries to talk down to you about that, fuck you. You were the mark because you loved it so much you got involved in it. And let's not use the M word because, as the back of the Wrestling Roundtable T-shirt shows, it's the M word. It's really looking down on you. It's the M word. You're a sucker. Don't be a sucker. Let's bring on Corey from Chicago. Hello, Corey. I'm sure you want to talk about the Stand Up for WWE campaign, so have at it.
I found the Stand Up for WWE campaign to be laughable and at times creepy. There was one specific Raw where they had aired this video where you have John Cena and the Bella Idiots. They have this vacant Dixie Carter stairs, the best way I can describe this, head cocked to the side. WWE is my family. I don't need anything else, just the WWE. Creepy Betazoid eyes. I love WWE forever. God, that scared the hell out of me. But the thing that got me was right after they aired this video, Michael Cole is on commentary, which is, of course, a bad example, and Michael Cole starts bad-mouthing and bashing indies. He's like, oh, this Daniel Bryan and this Caval person, they came from the low cards. They came from the minor leagues. Who watches that anymore? The minor leagues. So let me get this right. You want us to stand up for you, but if you turn around and bully these other companies, that's fine? Kind of put me off a little bit.
Well, now that you're on, Corey, and you mentioned indies, you were at Ring of Honor's last show in Chicago, I believe last month, which had the Christopher Daniels, Davey Richards main event. How did you think that show went?
That show went incredibly awesome. This is one of those shows that reminds me why I believe in professional wrestling, specifically the main event, where Davey Richards, I don't know how he did this, and don't tell me how he did it. Let me keep that magic. Christopher gets up onto the top rope, and he goes for the best moonsault ever, and out of nowhere, Davey, who had played dead until this point, leaps up and catches Christopher into a submission mid-air. This is something so beautiful that I wish to God more people would appreciate. Another match that really got my attention was Metal Master versus Mike Mondo.
Metal Master.
Actually, I thought he was pretty cool. He put a lot of heart and soul into this match. This Ring of Honor show really brought out the fan in me. This is one of those shows that reminds me why I love wrestling, because the skits were kept to the null and void minimum, and it was all action. Another match that I almost peed myself cheering for was Colt Cabana versus Steve Corino. The I Quit match. If you have to buy a wrestling DVD, please buy this one, specifically for the I Quit match. That incorporated the hardcore brutality that you see sometimes in other feds, like what some people would say is in ECW, but then it also brought about the heart of wrestling. It was this perfect combination of hardcore with technical skill, and this is why Ring of Honor is so great, and I wish people would stop pissing on it. This is a fantastic match.
Well, allow me. Metal Master has the most generic babyface. If you're a wrestler or a potential wrestler listening to this, please stop the generic babyface warm-up. Come on! And shaking your fist. God, I hate that shit. But being more positive, that main event with Chris Daniels and Davey Richards, incredible match, really good match. And the only thing missing was that it wasn't for the title, but that's neither here nor there. Amato. Hello, Amato.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing all right. What do you got to say?
I mentioned on the actual Facebook group page that Survivor Series this year was brought back. They decided not to get rid of it because last year had low buy rates, and last year's main event was the 2 triple threat championship matches. And last year, I believe there was 2 Survivor Series elimination matches. But this year's SummerSlam main event was the elimination match, and then at Bragging Rights, they had the Bragging Rights match, which was also elimination style. And then you go into Survivor Series, which is one of the big 4 pay-per-views that you want everybody to buy. They only had 3 promotional spots for 3 matches. You're going into one of your fall big pay-per-view. You're only promoting 3 matches, and the last couple of months you've been having elimination tag matches. Yeah.
And you made a great point about that, which I did read, and I'm glad you brought it up on the air, because we are going to be talking about Survivor Series in a little bit. We want to talk about the old school Raw that preceded it first. However, I want to connect that to what you were saying about the Survivor Series promotion, because I think the card itself, I think everyone agrees, ended up being pretty good. However, the whole idea is to entice people to buy it, and that's where the problem, I think, lies. Now, last year, they did Survivor Series the day after a UFC show. They did the same thing this year, and it was also the second month in a row they've done that. You'd think they would have learned their lesson by now when even WrestleMania's buy rate suffered being the day after UFC. And not only was it multiple times this year, the previous show we were talking about how the previous pay-per-view was the day after a Brock Lesnar fight. So that's a fucking UFC show. So they can't be in too good standing there. What I don't understand as far as the placement of the old school Raw and Survivor Series is that the last time I remember something like this happening was the Raw 15th anniversary show being the Raw before Armageddon 07. And I didn't understand why they would do that instead of, like, let's say this Survivor Series was the old school show, and the theme was they're going to bring back the old guardrails and old red, white, and blue ropes and old graphics and old set and blah, blah, blah. That would have enticed me to be much more interested in the pay-per-view. I don't know about anybody else, but it just seemed to me, A, they didn't learn their lesson from scheduling it the day after a UFC pay-per-view for the second year in a row. Then again, with the cable companies, maybe they didn't have a choice, but it's something they should try to avoid, obviously. B, they are doing so many elimination-style tag matches, or just big tag matches in general, on these pay-per-views rather close by, instead of waiting to the big tag pay-per-view to do it. There was only one Survivor Series tag match on this. I think there could have been 1 or 2 more, especially with the Nexus still being around. It just seems like they're setting themselves up to not sell pay-per-views anymore. But that being said, I think everyone who saw the pay-per-view would agree that it came through, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I did want to mention the old school Raw. And Midge, I wanted to bring you on first because if anyone's going to be into the old school Raw, I'm sure you were. How'd you think the show was?
That show was pretty cool. They just kind of paraded a bunch of old guys in front of us, just, we had a million stars on. They didn't do anything, though. Like,
Tongan danced. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like, all right, Tatanka looks like he should have gotten in the ring instead of Sergeant Slaughter. That might have been
You want to know
better.
a little tidbit about Tatanka?
Probably not.
He was at the Ring of Honor show that weekend in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and they were asking him if he wanted to be on the show, and he said he couldn't because he was going to be on Raw. So he ended up not wrestling on the Ring of Honor show or doing something on the Ring of Honor show because he was on Raw for, 30 seconds?
Yeah, he probably got a nice little payday out of it for a little dance, though.
Yeah, probably.
I have to agree with Midge on this one. Yeah, cool. They had all these great guys, and they had the old guardrails and the red, white, and blue ropes, and then the rest with the awful wigs and the stupid bow ties. But they still ran it like a modern day Raw, which was basically a lot of talk and not a whole lot of wrestling. Swagger and Daniel Bryan had a good match, but even the whole time that was going on, you had JR commentating it, which was cool. But the whole time, what's that douchebag? Michael Cole was saying kept undercutting him. It was ruining the whole fucking thing.
Actually, that added a lot to it for me. I thought the Daniel Bryanson, whatever, U.S. title match with Jack Swagger was one of the best matches I've seen this year, at least from WWE. I loved especially the transitions at the end. I thought that was incredible. It was also very weird seeing all these modern wrestlers with the old guardrails and even the old camera shots, right at the beginning when Mean Gene Okerlund, who has the gray hair, that makes me sad, he should dye it black, when he came out on the stage with Bob Orton and The Miz and Randy, blah, 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 and they were even using the same camera shots. I was a sucker for that. The only thing I didn't like, and it was just a stupid minor thing, was right at the beginning when they had the WWF fanfare and they crossed off Federation and put entertainment. They should have just put the word entertainment in there, redone it instead of, no, this is entertainment, cross off, fuck that.
What would have been really cool, though, they had Vince McMahon start off doing welcome everyone to Monday Night Raw, he used to with that roar. That was cool. I wish he
would, but he's in a coma, right?
Granted, still, come on. His car blew up and he came on Raw next week to talk about he who do not speak of. He could break kayfabe once.
I know. I liked that they raided his old closet for those sports jackets that everyone was wearing, although I thought the wigs that they were putting everyone in was really stupid looking. By the way, John Morrison, they just signed Tyler Black. Kind of a waste. John Morrison stole his look. I mean, they're practically the same wrestler in the first place, but I guess maybe he can come in as his little brother. Will Vafides, your thoughts on Old School Raw, which I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. I definitely enjoyed it. I was surprised on how far they went. I was actually kind of afraid they weren't going to go all the way. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that they had the Mean Gene in the beginning, even the Titantron, even the Raw, the guardrail, everything about it did seem like it was a 1993 for Raw with today's wrestlers. It was.
I like that their old school WWF mixed so many different eras of old WWF, like 80s.
Yes.
They brought the yellow graphics back and 93 Raw.
They did the hotline with Mean Gene. I wanted them to do a phone number. I was a little upset they did WWEshop.com. I really would have been cool if they did a phone number.
Well, in the modern era, they would text sent to a number, but the detail that they went through for one goofy Raw, is pretty admirable.
That was pretty cool. I think if they used the classic belts, that would have been also a pretty cool idea. That was one thing I thought that would have been pretty cool if they used classic titles. But overall, the show was phenomenal, and we have to talk about the Roddy Piper at the end.
Oh, we will. There's a little thing I wanted to mention first, and that's how much I love Santino. Someone mentioned Santino, not Santamaria, Santino. That Cobra is the new Tongan death grip and the best, worst move. It is not only incredibly goofy and therefore great, the crowd is so fucking into it. Even the week before they were in England for the Halloween Raw, holy shit, what a reaction Santino was getting. I wish that he would get that reaction all the time. And even Vladimir Kozlov was getting over because of this. I love Kozlov because he's in the goofy phase of the big wrestlers' lifespan in WWE where you start off as the monster and then once that wanes out, you become goofy, and then it starts all over again. How many times has Mark Henry and Big Show gotten through this cycle? But Vladimir Kozlov is right in the middle of the comedy one, and it's really funny. I love how Santino's getting that reaction, and I love the Cobra. But relating that to the angle he's in, Tamina Snuka. What a hot piece of Tongan twat she is.
Really?
I think she's very attractive.
She's okay. She's got a good body, but she's kind of like, she has a man face kind of, you know, like.
Don't start with the man faces.
She also looks like she can kick my ass, which sometimes is a turn on, sometimes it's not a turn on. It depends who it is. But I want to speak about that. Speaking about that whole segment you were talking about with Kozlov and Santino, whose idea was it to give Darian Sheik a live mic?
Oh my God! I was afraid. I was like, ooh, I think when they're gonna cut his mic off. They actually did cut his mic off at some point. But
you have to.
You could see that. I was like, oh my God! They gave him a microphone. What are they gonna do? You know, if he starts like going off.
It was like a wind-up toy. He just went into his Hulk Hogan, mother swear to God, and blah blah blah, like he usually does. It was great. Leading up to the, I guess, main event segment, because it wasn't a fucking match, but in the main event slot, the last segment of the night, which was brought up, Roddy Piper. I want to relate this to what was said earlier about the scripts that the wrestlers have in the modern era. And you can tell with some wrestlers that they get a little more leeway, like a Miz or a Cena or whatever. And obviously the older wrestlers who were around before this ridiculous Hollywood writing regime that Stephanie brought in when she started up, guys like Mick Foley when he was around, Shawn Michaels or Triple H now, Undertaker, get to do their own thing. But it's amazing how, if you remember a few years ago, I guess it was in 2006, when Rated RKO were feuding with DX, the reunited DX for the first out of a billion times, when Michael Hayes cut that promo on Edge, and everyone was amazed. Wow, what a great promo. Well, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe, on one hand, these wrestlers are given every word to say, and some it's pretty obvious. Maybe, on the other hand, they wouldn't know what to say if they were allowed. In some, that's obviously not the case. So maybe it's somewhere in the middle. However, you can tell with these older wrestlers, like Roddy Piper did 8 days ago, when you let them talk, he sold the severity of that stipulation Goofy Cena refs the Orton-Barrett match better than maybe anybody had up until that point.
Absolutely.
Now, yeah, we've seen these sort of matches, these sort of stipulation matches, who knows how many times just in this year alone. But Roddy Piper made this one seem the most important. And how poignant was it when he brought up all these names who never won that belt? I mean, in the modern era, when winning the title doesn't mean nearly as much, and I say the title as if there was only one and there's multiple, so who knows, the waters have been muddied so much with that, even in light of all the unifications. But he made it seem so important, and connecting it to history like that. And I've been on their case about not being true to history to a degree, but what they did on this old school Raw I thought was a really good job, and let's see what you guys think about Roddy Piper and John Cena.
I love Roddy Piper, so anything he does is automatically great to me. And his segment was great. I had to agree with you. He really made the entire title sound made it seem like it meant something all over again, which is great. I was all for it. I loved it. I'm gonna probably watch it again when we're done talking.
The reason Roddy Piper is so believable is because he believes every single word he says. He's the man that told you how he cried during The Wrestler. He's the man that it legitimately hurts him that he would never had the world title, and he considers himself one of the greats. He is one of the greats, and just the fact that the world title has been so watered down lately, he reminded everybody how prestigious that title once was to these great superstars.
Yeah, I think Mitch put it pretty much all the way. If you didn't watch anything that was happening for the last 4 weeks and you just watched that one old school Raw, you would honestly, you wouldn't have to watch the last 4 weeks. He told the whole story in 10 minutes, which is very rare that we get to see this day in wrestling. There's not many people that can do something like that. Not many people can tell a story about, like, putting a pen on a table and try to sell it to me. You know, Roddy Piper did an amazing job, and I give him a lot of credit for that. Definitely made me look forward to watching the pay-per-view. And it was also good to see, actually, when Orton and Cena were fighting each other, that they had a breakup of all these people with the suits and the referees. I can't remember the last time we even saw that.
Tony Gurria coming out to break up a fight was a welcome sight. And I also enjoyed the Tito Santana Chavo Classic combo introducing Alberto Del Rio. Ryan from Massachusetts, back on.
Just something that no one else seemed to have mentioned. I really liked Mark Henry going back to his Sexual Chocolate music just for that one Raw.
Actually, you're the only one.
Yeah, I know, but it was nice. I really liked the Brooklyn Brawler versus Ahmed Johnson. Oh wait, I mean Ezekiel Jackson match. But when Roddy Piper looked at him and said, "Don't spit in my face, Cena," you felt that real moment. To put it simply, overall, I thought it was a really great show. A lot of throwbacks, a lot of people that we haven't seen. We see Ron Simmons. Everyone, all the time. We see a bunch of old classics all the time, but then we saw a bunch of people we haven't seen in a while, and I just thought it was a great Raw.
Corey, you're on. I'm surprised you guys haven't mentioned Mae Young slipping up and calling those idiots sluts on the broadcast.
Because she could barely move.
I kind of mentioned it in the Linda McMahon thing when I said we've heard bitches and sluts on TV in the past couple of weeks since she's lost.
I thought that was actually pretty great. I mean, I know a lot of people were like, oh, it wasn't a real match, and everybody and their grandmother had to help her, but I actually did mark out a bit for that spot.
I really popped for the fossil brush that Lay Cool had. I know Bill hates Lay Cool, who does our recaps on our website, and while I'm mentioning it, you should definitely check out our columns and recaps. Zach Fellows writing NXT and SmackDown, and Bill Treadway recapping Raw and the TNA pay-per-views and other pay-per-views as well, including indie shows he's gone to. Bill and Zach write a lot for our website every week, so check out the columns, recaps, bios, links, store, everything else on WrestlingRoundtable.com. One more call before we move on to Survivor Series, bringing back on Abe.
Yes, I can talk about the old school Raw right now?
Whatever you want. I don't give a shit.
I like the Raw old school, and maybe just me. When Piper he was talking about the procedure of the belt and how you spit in my face if you give it to Barrett. He went emotional internally, but not physically. And I mean by that is that his tone spoke more than if he cried or something like that. And when he gave it like that, it got the crowd kind of woke, and people were kind of like, oh, shocking at Barrett being a dickwad. But you haven't seen heels in a long time just being a pure dick, which I think is awesome. I understand why as a heel. He said, you don't give me that chance because I haven't had a fair opportunity. And I'm like, you had advantages in both matches and you still lost.
All right, let's move on to Survivor Series. Pay-per-view that, like I said, had a lot of odd promotion around it, and you'd think they would stack the deck more on what used to be one of the big four, but I guess they're giving it another shot for one more year and seeing if it'll carry itself on this stipulation match with Cena, Orton, and Barrett involved. Anyway, pay-per-view. Will Brooks, thoughts?
There's been too many elimination matches nowadays where it's just not cool anymore like it used to be with Survivor Series. I mean, they're overdrawn out. There's too many of them, especially like you said with Nexus. They could have had like all the members that weren't in the match. You know, there's like four leftover guys after the tag team and Wade Barrett. They could have had a match. And
well, not just the Nexus. Isn't there a brand split still? And there's tons of people supposedly on both of these shows. Stack the deck.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job again. Even though it was a little weird not having enough elimination matches, a lot of the matches were very good.
Right.
Up to the Kane Edge match and the tag match, it was a solid card. I gotta say, the whole show was going at a great pace. I was a little surprised that Morrison won against Sheamus. I thought Sheamus would definitely go over, so that kind of surprised me. The Daniel Bryan match was phenomenal because Daniel Bryan's amazing. This is Koval's first pay-per-view show. Amazing showing. He did a great job, and even the elimination match was great. The Kane Edge match was kind of a little bit of a downfall. Yeah, it wasn't that great. There's no reason to watch it. But the best thing was the first time I think a Hart actually won a title on Survivor Series. It didn't get screwed this year.
With a sharpshooter, no less.
Yes, not less. The ending of the match, when that John Cena actually pinned the 3, I didn't say anything for a while because I did not see that coming. I had nothing to say. because I really did not see that happening.
I'm wondering whatever happened to Edge's war on stupid. Maybe that only lasted a couple weeks, and now he's back to hitting Paul Bearer in the head with a ball. I don't know. Midge, your thoughts on Survivor Series this year?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, it didn't have to be called Survivor Series because there really wasn't any, but that's been beaten to death. My favorite part about Survivor Series was Natty winning the title and her raw emotion about actually achieving that. She kind of reminds me of like a female Tommy Dreamer when he actually meant something to people. Ted DiBiase's match with that other guy, that was a pretty good one, except like,
all right,
you know,
that other guy. What's your problem with Bryan Danielson? I want to know.
I don't have a problem with Bryan Danielson.
Are you just trolling me?
Daniel Bryan, on the other hand, is
okay.
I haven't caught on like you guys. I watched every match. I do. You know I do. He's not hosting me. He does seem like a dork. He does seem like a geek. Like, I don't know. I'm not into him. It's not an indie thing because I love Caval. Caval is the man. I can't get into Bryan Danielson. He's got nothing for me.
I want to backtrack a little bit to that Swagger match I mentioned on Old School Raw, and Will Brooks talking about how the commentary took away. It actually added for me, because not only can I enjoy the great wrestling that he always brings, but I really think that this Michael Cole, Vince McMahon puppet character that he's playing, I think it's fucking great. And I know he's probably half obnoxious in real life, and the other half of the obnoxiousness is Vince McMahon talking in his ear. So either way, wherever the obnoxiousness is coming from, and we have talked about it on the show before, how it is kind of weird that they're using him in certain situations, like with the former ROH guys like Loki and Danielson and the Hart Dynasty and whoever, and just completely shredding these people. But I think it's pretty funny. I just love that there's a troll out there completely goofing on the beloved Jim Ross and Bryan Danielson or whoever. I think it's actually an entertaining part, and it's not saying that I agree with it like you do, Midge, but
I mean, the man's right. He's right.
I'm not saying he's right. I just think it's funny.
The banter between Stryker and Cole, it's really sounded like Jerry Lawler wanted to just get up and beat the shit out of the both of them because they were bothering the hell. They kind of go off on these tangents, and they forget about the match in the ring, and they just go off on their own little deal. It does get a little annoying.
Will mentioned it earlier, but I'm curious to hear what you think about the Caval-Dolph Ziggler Intercontinental title match.
The one from SmackDown definitely set it up well. Caval pulled out a couple of good moves, and Dolph Ziggler certainly held his own like he did with Rey Mysterio. And it looks like it's going to be, well, it probably won't be, but it should be a nice little series of matches putting Caval and both Dolph Ziggler over. But it was definitely a good match with not really a bullshit ending or Vicky Guerrero getting too involved. Or it was a good starter match for two guys that have hopefully long futures together.
All right. Before we move on to, of course, the big event, the big topic that's lit up the internet in the past 24 hours, which was the ending of Raw last night. Before we get to that, I want to point out something I thought of today. You ever think about how, of all the wrestling you've watched in all these years, you ever think about how many nipples you've watched in that time because of it?
No, never.
No, I don't either.
Who the hell says that? Really? Wow.
Now I'm just putting those images in your head. Mission accomplished.
Wow.
Moving on to WWE Raw. Two things I wanted to point out about the show last night. Firstly, the John Cena promo about midway through, I thought was one of the best promos that I've seen, at least especially as far as WWE goes, and maybe in all of wrestling, in years. I thought the feeling and the emotion, and maybe it's because I've had just a little taste of what it feels like to be on the road and away from my family, and especially at that point, but I thought Cena sold this goofy stipulation that we know won't last, but I think he sold it better than I've seen in a really long time. He made it seem actually real, and he made it seem actually important. What do you guys think about that?
I have to agree. I thought it was a great promo, especially when he had the women and children saying, "Let's go Cena," and he had all the guys saying Cena sucks, and he embraced that. I thought that was hilarious. I loved it. But, yeah, he really sold it. The only thing I would have done a little different, instead of having him come at the end of Raw like we all expect him to, I probably would have had him off TV for a week.
Right.
And then have him, like, jump Wade Barrett in the background, in the backstage when, like, all the Nexus was doing something else. And he, like, whoops his ass like Nexus used to do to all the other guys. But, I mean, that's the only thing I would change. Otherwise, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I was actually I was very impressed by it. I don't ever get to brag about at least Cena's work as far as, you know, he's not really able to say what he said, but he really is he does have a convincing factor to him when he talks. So I was very impressed with it. I think he did a great job. I just wish it was believable. Maybe to some kids it is. I mean, it definitely, maybe to some kids it really is believable. You don't promote a DVT.
Hey, wrestling's still believable, especially to that demon girl at the end of Raw.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm saying is that, you know, you want to be convinced. It's like when Nexus attacked the entire, like, Raw group. That was so convincing, you know, when that happened. Yeah, it looked so convincing. You know, but like I said, there's no way there's going to be a best of future endeavors. He's going to show up in TNA or something. You know, there's like that question in your mind. You know he's going to be back within the next week or two. So he already advertised to come back next week. So, you know.
Well, look, I knew that too, but I still got lost in the promo. I still got sold.
Yeah,
that promo.
That's like he sold it to where you might have a question in your mind if he's ever coming back. So, yes, I think he did a tremendous job on a very solid Raw up to that point until, obviously, the end where it became even better.
Well, we already talked about how good a job Cena did, so I don't need to repeat that. Your boy bowing down to John Cena as he walked out of the exit, you know, Mr. Daniel Bryan is certainly paying homage to his hero.
Whatever. I love that segment where he was walking out because it was very, and WWE used to do a lot more stuff like this, and for some company that says they make movies, and wrestling is really just a unique art form in this sense, but it really can be, at its best, very cinematic. And extending that segment to Cena walking out, Orton giving him the half hug, half handshake was a cute little touch, but when Cena was walking out and then Barrett walked into the shot, I thought that was wonderful. I thought it was very cinematic, and I thought it also really helped Barrett's character and kept him in the mix as far as your mind, even in just that little second right at the end. Even though the whole focus was on Cena, that really was a good added little touch. Moving on to, speaking of Barrett, the main event, of course, Orton retains over Wade Barrett, but then The Miz cashes in the Money in the Bank finally. Now, I wanted to bring up some of our previous polls here. We had a poll up on the website at the time, U.S. champion The Miz with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and 38% of you, the voting audience, voted that they'll fuck it up or hesitate like always. That was the most voted for answer. We had another poll, who will be the biggest breakout star of the supposed youth movement in WWE? And almost a similar number, but The Miz got 39% of the voting. So I guess the audience is 50-50. Miz comes out and takes advantage of the beaten Orton. Now, I've never been a big fan of the Money in the Bank gimmick or story in the past 4 years or however long they've been doing it. I think it's very cheap. It adds almost a hardcore title 24/7 element to the WWE title. Almost. Not quite the same, but I know everyone else in the world is into it but me, fine. That being said, the finish, especially for this match, I thought was great. Randy Orton going for the RKO and Miz countering that with the skull-crushing finale. Great transition or counter. I thought that was awesome. Awesome! And as much as I don't like The Miz, and I hate his stupid face, I don't care about his wrestling in particular. I'm just not a big fan of him for all the obvious stereotypical reasons from back then, reality star, blah, blah, blah. So I never got into
pro
him.
in NXT.
Excuse me?
Did the best pro in NXT. Don't forget that one.
That's a fucking stat if I've ever heard one. But that being said, I don't like The Miz. However, I think it's great that he won the title. I'm glad to see new faces in the mix because he has definitely earned this spot. It's a great story, especially even though he's the sneaky heel in this case. Just as a story as far as a wrestler's career goes, he's earned this and worked hard for it, and that's a really good story, and he's used that in his promos previously. Unlike when Sheamus won the title last year, Sheamus is a big enough guy that I don't think he should have been getting flukes and cheating per se. Someone more of the size of Edge or Miz being the sneaky heel using the briefcase, I think, is a little more fitting. So if this is the modern-day equivalent of Billy Graham putting his feet on the ropes to beat Bruno for the title, I'm all for it. I think The Miz is good in this role. Everyone's talking about it, and it seems to have accomplished its mission. So let's see what you think. Lova Fides.
I have to compare this to when Matt Serra won the UFC welterweight title. Remember that one?
It's nothing like it whatsoever.
I just had to find some kind of segue to bring it up because I know how much you hate the fact that St. Pierre lost to Matt Serra and Matt Serra became the UFC welterweight champion.
That never happened.
Yeah, I just looked at the record books on UFC.com, and it definitely happened. So I was always talking about how Miz would actually be the first one to lose it, but this was the first time that they actually had like a little mini match out of the Money in the Bank briefcase. Instead of sneaking in a victory, he kind of didn't. He had a real legit match and won it legitly, in a way. It was really great. I think that should have been on Survivor Series personally.
Well, there you go. You can have the old school theme and Miz winning the title on the pay-per-view. This would all seem to make sense.
Yeah, you pay for a pay-per-view because you're going to expect something more and special.
Mm-hmm.
But the next night, you get a WWE Championship change where that would have been more valuable, I think, if it was on the show, because there were media outlets who were covering that the Miz won the belt. So
MTV, TMZ.
Yeah, they were covering it. So it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than most people think it is. He's going to be something. He's going to be, I don't want to compare him, but he's going to be like the next Rock. I'm telling you, he's going to be that kind of guy. He has the look. He has the charisma. He does have the wrestling, despite what most people think. It's definitely going to be some good TV, I think, for the next couple of weeks. We have the King of the Ring next week, and I think Miz winning it is a refresh because it's a brand-new star who's never won a world title. This is good for us. I think it's good for the Royal Rumble. It's good for WrestleMania, and I think we're going to see a couple good weeks, months of TV from WWE.
Miz, like The Rock, you should take that back.
I will not take that back.
Maybe it's because I have a man crush on The Rock, but I hate The Miz like that. No, I don't see it happening.
Well, finally, the greatest technical wrestler in the WWE has the title. But anyway.
I thought you were a midget or a leprechaun, not a troll.
But it is a good thing that The Miz won the title, and it was a different Money in the Bank match, like Will said. It did almost look like he was about to lose, and Randy Orton would take him, but The Miz took it. What they need to do now is simply bring back one person to rub it right in his face, JBL. Bring back JBL, show him, look what I did, look at all the shit you put me through, and I think something like that would really get The Miz over.
So what would it be in the next pay-per-view? Would it be Miz and Bradshaw and a loser gets tied up and raped in the shower match?
Something along those lines. I'd have to PG it up a little bit, but that would be the premise. That would be the premise, yes.
Well, first off, Miz, I think your speaking privileges should be gone because you just said bring back Bradshaw. So, but anyway, I thought it was great. It looked like he was about to lose it for a second, then he pulls out the win, even though it's the same finish we've seen a billion times in the last year, which is I go for my finish, but then you go for your finish, but I get my finish in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the way a lot of matches end, but I thought it was great. I even thought John Cena's interference was cool as hell. And even when he was getting chased by all the Nexus, even when Heath Slater basically caught up to him when he got to the gate, it was kind of funny to me. But no, I thought the whole night was great. I thought the switch to Miz was great because I was even telling you guys, when the hell they're finally going to pull this trigger on this? I'm getting bored, it's pissing me off. And then, of course, as soon as I say this, they pull the trigger and it works beautifully. So shows what I know, right?
Nicholas from Indiana. You're on the air.
Miz winning the title is not shocking. The past couple months, there are spots and pay-per-views where they could have Miz came out, and it really looks like it where Hell in a Cell and bragging rights, they had it set it up where it looks like it's going to have the Miz came out and win it, and they never took a spot. But also, I like it when Miz win it because it's totally different, and it's somebody new. I like how Miz win it, but I didn't like how Sheamus win it because he didn't work for it, and they just put him in there, try something new, and I didn't like that. So I like how the Miz won. He earned the spot, and I like Sheamus. He just came in and won it, and just was lucky because Triple H was pushing him.
Lapidus, did you hear this? I'm not the only one, Lapidus. I'm not the only one.
Well, fight down.
First of all, spotting Triple H on the bench press is hard work. Secondly, as much as I joke about Sheamus and Triple H and whatnot, I actually don't mind Sheamus. In fact, if he got into that spot because he was friends with Triple H at the time or whatever the fuck, I don't care. Because as long as he's able to bring it, and I didn't think he was bad, and he was a good new, not baby face, but a fresh face in the main event scene at the time anyway. Now he's losing to Santino and shit, but I thought it was good to have someone new in the mix, so I'm certainly not going to hold that against him. Abe, you're on again.
I like the fact that it was real spontaneous, meaning that Raw used the same format, and he just did something different. Oh, thank goodness. And one thing about him winning it versus Sheamus last year, Sheamus, if you turn into Raw like the first 4 months, you ain't know who he was. He wasn't built either way. The Miz was built actually before he got the contract, and when he won it was because everyone knew who he was. And I find it funny in a way that the guys, Jack Swagger went at WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year, and they made his title reign the biggest joke when they're Money in the Bank and everyone's part of history. That's just my opinion.
Ryan from Massachusetts, back on.
If you want to see the whole Miz arguments that I've been fighting, check out the Wrestling Roundtable discussion board. You're welcome.
Yeah,
Eric.
a lot more negative people than us on that message board, I guess, but a lot of back and forth about the Miz, so it's good to have different viewpoints. But as you were saying, go ahead.
But Miz is another case of everyone's always bitching, oh, we want new faces in the main event. We want new faces in the main event. They give us a new face. No, not that guy. We want this guy.
You didn't hear that from me.
No, of course.
You didn't hear me go, why wasn't it Brian Day?
I heard from you, though. So,
No, but that's the thing. Whenever we do get a fresh face, there's no pleasing the people who just straight up don't like WWE. But I don't straight up like WWE, and I even said I don't like The Miz, and I think this is great. Exactly, but there are some people who will shit on it no matter what happens. But I really liked that. Obviously, from the RVD cash-in, this was the most credible cash-in. Orton actually did get a good amount of offense in. I really liked how Orton had the RKO in the end of the counter because it wasn't like Miz never gave him a chance. I thought it was a really great moment. I thought it was a really great cash-in. It was great. But I just want to, if I may, Eric, just go back real quick to the John Cena promo.
Sure. Throughout
pro wrestling ever, I always had one philosophy. If at any moment of any time they get you, even for a millisecond, forget that John Cena did that night. He made me forget just for a second that this was all planned. He made me actually believe for just once. That was enough for me to say, bravo, John Cena.
Agreed. Good point. I think it's funny you mentioned the word philosophy. You could essentially look at this show as Wrestling Philosophy 101. Amato, you're back on.
All right, one thing that I had to mention about The Miz, because a lot of people have been giving him a lot of crap over this entire year, but I was watching something, an interview recently with him where he was saying he's at all the house shows, he's always out promoting the company wherever they need him to go. He's wrestling all the time compared to everybody else.
He did actually, now that you mention it, have a really insane weekend just recently where he flew like 4 times within the span of a few days across ridiculous lengths to make a couple house shows and a media appearance or 2. That's pretty out there, and that's great that they have a good hand like him, so to speak, on board. More Cena's, I guess.
one of the really good things about cashing the Money in the Bank, when they started it, I kind of had, my doubts about it. But when Edge came out and cashed his Money in the Bank, when Cena retained his title and Cena had that bloody face, trying to stand and everything, and the whole place, I think they were in Albany, the whole place went nuts. And even when Edge cashed it in on SmackDown against The Undertaker, and The Undertaker was all bloody, I thought that was a really good concept, that these guys were really in tremendous matches, bloody, bruised, and battered, and these guys come in and, hit their finisher, and it's over. And then RVD did it, because he wanted to do it in the ballroom or the bingo hall, if you will. CM Punk does it, and he hits it twice. And I thought the commentary with CM Punk last night when he says, this feels kind of familiar, I thought it was a good plug for him.
The problem with the Money in the Bank is, though, man, sometimes you get the feeling that that's the only way they know how to build somebody. He gets a cheap win for the title.
It is. It's a cheap way to do it, but I guess most fans buy into it right now. I did want to mention in the chat room that TNA Fanatic mentioned the spinning belt that they're still using, and we've talked on the show before about how I don't think anybody cares for the design to be around anymore, especially if Cena's not having it. But he said that the belt should be redesigned just for Miz to be the WWE Real World title. Get it? The Real World?
Oh, boy.
I thought it was funny. Corey, you're back on.
Until that moment.
Hi. I'm not really getting behind The Miz, actually. I don't see what all the fuss is about.
You're very negative on the chat board, by the way, without that.
No shit.
Guilty as charged. I think it's okay in one respect, because it is fresh blood. It's a hell of a lot better than seeing Cena and Orton pass the stupid thing back and forth. But, I don't know, I just can't really get into The Miz.
Well, it's because it was built up slowly, It was built up properly, it built up the right way. That's what made it so cool. It's like, yes, finally it happened. Yay. Yeah.
No. You can't get into The Miz because he didn't work his way on the indies. He didn't play in the little gymnasiums with your boy there. That's why you guys can't get into.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this Michael Cole on helium?
He wasn't on the mic.
Oh my God, Michael Cole was going nuts.
Well, I had no idea that McMahon's boyfriend was on the phone. How do you do? I actually kind of liked when Sheamus had the belt. I know that sounds
negative on the board and on here.
I know that sounds strange, but I actually liked when Sheamus had the belt because he's different. He's not like the other wrestlers. He's got a marketable look.
Yeah, he sucks.
No, he's actually pretty good.
There goes
I
Will.
saw his indie work. He's actually pretty good.
Oh, he is awful.
I don't know. I liked his indie stuff. There's just no love for ginger wrestlers these days, though, so I understand.
Ooh.
I understand. You don't like no gingers. It's okay.
That's the end of the show. Tune in next time. We're going to talk about some of the latest goings-on in mixed martial arts, including WEC being absorbed into UFC 123, and, of course, the big fights with BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, Rampage, and Machida. And we're also going to do the best and worst of Survivor Series. I know by the time we do it, November is going to be over, but fuck it. We're going to do the best and worst of Survivor Series history. That would be matches, moments, and overall shows. Next time on Wrestling Roundtable Radio, along with talking about Chris and Nancy, Irv Mushnick's book on the Chris Benoit murders being optioned to be a film, along with the follow-ups to our latest video shows. If you haven't seen them yet, check them out on YouTube before we go back on the air. That would be the best and worst makeovers, debuts, and returns on show number 46 on the next Wrestling Roundtable Radio. So for the panel of Brett Midge Simonello, Will Brooks, Will Vafides, and all the callers, thank you for calling in. Please join us on WrestlingRoundtable.com. Support the show. Sign up for the newsletter, the message board. Check everything out we have for you on WrestlingRoundtable.com, especially shopping at the store. I'm the host, Eric Santamaria. Thank you, and join us next time.